And so, good day, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well, and thank you so very much. My name is DEDREN SNEAD, and welcome to Black Futures Month 2022. I'm very excited to have y'all here with us this Friday evening. Thank you so very much from wherever you're joining us. Very excited for a fantastic run of Black Futures Month. And for as we do here with SUBSUME, just to give you a quick blurb of where we are and who we are. So we are out of Atlanta, Georgia, servicing all parts known and unknown to be the intersection of creativity, technology, and community, where we're using talents in comics, media, technology, social entrepreneurship, and civics to be able to have our stories told and to be able to see ourselves in a shared future with agency and authority. And so for us, Black Futures Month is in a real sense an honor of Black History Month, which of course is our celebration here for February 2022. But for us to look ahead at the innovators and the things that we're doing here in real time and how we can see ourselves included in the worlds of tomorrow. And so through that, as always, for either resistance, for story, and for the best in us, we turn to art. And so we wanted to kick things off with a Friday evening engagement where everybody could just come in and come together, unwind after a day of Zoom meetings and join yet another, but have one that's a little bit more interactive, a lot more fun, and I assure you more talented than what you've had at the 9 to 5. So with that, we're absolutely thrilled to come in with a special treat and kick things off. And so what we'll do here for the next couple hours, we're going to open up a live stream. And what we try to do with SUBSUME, as well as create our own stories, is to empower people to learn how to share stories themselves. I think there's a storyteller in all of us, whether or not we're all familiar with the mediums of art and animation or just singing and music. That there is a way for you to communicate what's best about yourself, your culture, and your legacy, and find a way to stay included in the conversations to come. And so with that, we're very excited to have, in partnership with the Joe KUBERT School of Illustration. And I wanted to make sure that I got a part of something to show and share. But with that, we have an opportunity to bring in not only a top talent from that school, but also look to include a very capable and considering talent in and of himself to come in and bring a conversation about drawing inclusive characters. Now, of course, myself as a comic book creator, writer, and in very modest creative hand, have a project that I've been working on the past couple of years, Sorghum and Spear, and I'm always in awe of the fantastic talents of the artists that help bring my written stories to life. And so what we wanted to look at is how do we find ways to bring the true inclusions, the true nuances of character and culture onto the page. And so with that, I'm going to bring in the president first of the Joe KUBERT School to introduce himself, give a little bit of background about the school, and then we'll bring in the talent in addition to, so we can go ahead and get started with this program. So with that, I'm going to call to our virtual stage Mr. Anthony Marquez. Let me go ahead and give us a little bit of
space.
Yeah,
give a little bit of that breathing space.
a little virtual breathing room. I appreciate you so very much for being here with us, Anthony. A pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, man. It's great to see you. First off, I have to say, I haven't seen you since we were at Motor City Comic Con, but we stay in touch. We text, we get on the phone, we get to chat every now and then. But it's great to see you, man. For anybody that doesn't know, DEDREN wakes up extremely early. Okay, he's a very early to rise man. He gets after the day pretty early. I'm very similar. So we would wake up, before anybody else would be awake, and we would be downstairs eating breakfast, just talking shop about comics. And it was wonderful. It was great getting a chance to meet you there and kind of get you to be in both of our worlds now, which is fantastic. Absolutely. So very happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us. And I just want to say hello to everybody else that's out there that's joining us tonight. We have something really special to engage you all in and get you to take part in as well. I hope that you have some paper. I hope you have some pencils. I hope you have some crayons, whatever you got, because we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. We're going to get out there and get drawing. So just in case you don't know what the Joe KUBERT School of Cartoon and Graphic Art is, it's a professional school. It's a technical school that specializes in cartoon and graphic art, or specifically narrative art. Now, for those of you that don't know what narrative art is, I'm sure many of you have read comic books. Now, that storytelling of the artwork from panel to panel, that seems so seamless, so effortless, that you only spend about 30 seconds on the page as you're reading through, flipping by, is done by somebody that is a master at that craft and understanding and how to convey that story through art. And that is extremely difficult and takes so much time to learn. And that's what we specialize in. Now, we have an alumni list that stretches throughout every facet of the comic book and entertainment industries as well. We have people working at Pixar. We have people working in animation all over the place. We have people working in every single comic book. Any comic book that you pick up from DC Comics has somebody within it that's an alumnus of the school, which is really incredible to go out there and say. But it's a wonderful school. It was founded by our fantastic founder, Joe KUBERT, who is right up there on the Mount Rushmore of creators in this comic book industry. And we're so glad to be able to keep his legacy going forward and build upon the foundation that he started and keep this growing and interacting with new artists and getting them involved, because that's what's important. We want to make sure that people continue to do this because it's incredibly special. So to have DEDREN invite us out here tonight to be able to talk about it a little bit and to talk with you folks is going to make for a really awesome Friday night.
This is the Friday night fun we dream of. So hey, this is it.
This is the best it gets for me, man.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And for those, and we thank everybody. We see you in the chat, and we appreciate you being part of this program. We absolutely want to make sure that we take your questions, take your comments, and again, make sure that you stay included with this. So keep them coming. We want to thank everybody from there. And for several of our guests here tonight, we want to thank the Joe KUBERT School yet again right before I bring a guest in. So another incentive, if not for the cool art and the fantastic camaraderie, we also have some of these beauties to give away, right?
Yeah, so, these are the beautiful correspondence courses that we have, and we would love to send these out to some folks that might want to just learn a little bit more about penciling or inking or superheroes or storytelling in general. And these are really wonderful courses. So I'll be more than glad and in a partnership with SUBSUME to send these out to you. And I hope that you really enjoy them and are able to learn from them as well and become a better artist and be the artist that you want to be.
Man, just so well said. And, speaking of the artists we want to be, I know we've got two of them in the back that we want to go ahead and bring forward. Let us get in and get drawing. So we appreciate everybody's time and patience with us as we look to go ahead and get things going. And we'll take it first. So I'm going to allow these gentlemen to come up and introduce themselves, so that way I give them all the opportunities to give their proper credits and bona fides. I love hearing stories of where people are at and where they're from. So the first one we'll bring to the stage is Mr. Fernando Ruiz. And so now we will go. So Fernando, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure and an honor, sir. And with that, I want to see if we can also bring Mr. Sean Damien Hill to the stage. Let's see. I know we got Sean coming in and along. So this is how creative he is. He is a man of mystery. But, with that, I think we don't get a chance. We see all of Sean's art. We rarely get a chance to see Sean himself. So I feel like this is very apropos into that. So Sean, if you need a minute, grab your camera. I'll put you to the back and let you come in. But we are obviously excited to have you here. I see that you already have your art on the screen, so I'm gonna switch you out with that. So again, we got some representation of you from there. So
I was not prepared at all for an actual camera. I was like,
what? Oh no, you're fine. So see, again, we're in it. So I'm gonna remove that part. I'll give you a minute because we still want to keep your voice in. But to that,
all right.
Let us take a moment with Fernando, sir. Your art and legacy speaks for itself, but I'd love to hear it from you that we can kind of share some about yourself and your experiences with the Joe KUBERT School. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'm a graduate of the school. And I've been working since I graduated. I started out with Archie Comics, and they found me right at the school. One of the great things about the school is its great connections to the comic book industry. And every year we have different comic book companies come out to the school to review our graduating students' portfolios. And that was how Archie found me. So I was very lucky to graduate and go into a very steady gig that lasted 22 years. So I worked for them for a million years. And then I also did a lot of work for other companies too, like Dynamite, Dark Horse. I do a lot of work currently for Pixie Tricks Comics, which is a web comics company, and a lot of commercial art, which nobody ever hears about. But it pays great.
I was gonna say, keeps a little bit of that. Well, definitely keeps the lights shining a bit brighter.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. It's a nice trade-off, believe me. So I've been fortunate enough to be able to keep making a go of it in this business. And also, I've been teaching at the school. This is my 27th year teaching at the KUBERT School. And last year, I became the school's admissions officer. So I'm very happy and proud of that. And that's all there is to me.
Oh, that's that is obviously, you're being modest, and we do appreciate that. And again, your example and bringing you a part of us with us. There's Sean. I want to give a moment to turn it over to you. So Sean, as you can, if you want to introduce yourself, I'd love to hear more about the mystery, and the legend.
Oh man, I'm trying to figure out how to make myself sound interesting. My name is Sean Damien Hill. I've been a comic artist mostly for a lot of indie comics for, man, I gotta think about how long I've been doing it. Is it 10 years? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, been reading comics pretty much since I could read as a little boy. I was practically indoctrinated. My family had like their favorite comics that they would have me read, everything from Avengers, Teen Titans, and stuff like that. Like I still remember like the Marv Wolfman, George Perez run, like way back in the day. Like that's like my that was like my introduction into comics. Like my mom would have these old books just laying around. So the bug to draw comics has been with me ever since then. As far as schooling goes, I am a college dropout. Like I went for fine art, and I even had a mentor that for many years like trained me up in fine art. Like I thought I was going to be like a legit oil painter, and eventually the comic book got me again. And my girlfriend at the time was now my wife. She was going to school for media arts and animation, and as much as she loves animation, she hated actually animating. So I got to sit in a lot of classes and learn a lot of things about narrative and storytelling, and how to properly do it, and all the things to avoid and stuff like that. And yeah, it kind of drove me to where I am now.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. Please.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just so used to always talking all
No, please, no. This is your folks' arena.
I love hearing those kind of stories. Sean, I could speak for myself. I went to my local community college for a number of years, and well, you can't go a number of years. It's like a 2-year max. But then you wind up leaving, and it just wasn't for me. I didn't dig it. I wound up going out and doing construction work actually for a number of years after that. And I was always drawing still. Never stopped drawing. So I can totally relate with where you're coming from. You just get that bug, and once it bites you, you can never let it go. You're always, I mean, I've been doing it since I was a little kid. My mom says she used to catch me either drawing or eating crayons. So one way or another, it was in me. I had no choice. I couldn't get it, so I love it. It's something that I think for anybody that's watching right now, if you love to draw, you do. It's something that you can't go any day without doing. I have to draw every single day. And I have 2 little kids as well. And I got to say, unfortunately, I've passed this bug on to both of my children. They love drawing as well. So it's something incredible to see. And for those of you that love to draw, don't ever stop, because I promise you it's one of the most rewarding things you'll be able to do in your lives.
Oh, absolutely. And just I see where downtime with the Mills says, as an animator, you can tell you it is not for the faint of heart. Right? You must persist. You must want to do this, right? You have to. It's a calling, if anything else. Thank you for that.
it's definitely something that, you know, there's days where it feels like you're flying. It's easy, and then other days it's like going through mud. You got to work your way through it. But like I said, it's incredibly rewarding, you know, to be able to go out there and see that piece of artwork and not so much get the praise of others. It's never about that. I think if you're going into it for that reason, for anybody that's going into it for that reason, it's not the right one. But it's this self-satisfaction that you get from putting out the best work that you could do and being proud of it. That's what it feels great. I don't really quite know how to explain it. It's just something that you have to do. And when you see it in the way that you imagined it being on a piece of paper or on a tablet or on a screen, whatever it is that you're working on, whatever tool you're using, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Just so well said. So no, gentlemen, I would be remiss to say it looks like, you know, it is time to draw. So how about, you know, I want to be the administrator here because I see, you know, the pen and paper on Fernando's cam, and of course Sean with some art. I feel like I'm spoiled here, so let me try to figure a way to share this this goodness here with with our guests. So, Fernando, if we may, you know, as our lead instructor, I'd love to take your cadence as far as to, you know, kind of just taking a moment to talk about not only just characters, but of course, where we're looking at inclusion of characters, the way that characters culturally, you know, are appreciative of their backgrounds, and the way that we look at using this space and this way of art to really represent people in story. So I'll maybe start this with a question as we look to bring this in. Let me try to see if I can add your stream. And Sean, so bear with me. We'll get yours in as well. I just want to give us a good setup as I try to figure out the best way to make yours the solo. All right. With that, Fernando, and this may be something that we'll do in just to make sure that we give enough space and place for everybody to be able to see the art. Fernando, and we want to take questions from the audience as well. When we talk about inclusion in characters or diversity in characters, does that have any particular meaning or resonance with you?
Yeah, it's certainly something that as a creator, both as a writer and as an artist, you have to try and do, because nowadays readers are all over. You know, everybody's reading comics, and more people have access to comics than ever with the technology and with comics being online. So it's important to have representation of all cultures and all different types of people. Certainly, when I was drawing for Archie, it was always something that we had, you know, in the backs of our mind, was to, you know, for about 70 years, the Archie cast was just 5 white kids. So we wanted to expand that to include more people. And, you know, we always tried to do that. We always tried to grow the cast and show that Riverdale, where Archie lived, was more representative and inclusive.
And having a legacy project and product and brand like a Riverdale and that Archie series, would you care to share us like a bit of a visual representation of maybe some of the things that you're referring to?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I worked on a lot at when I was at Archie was I worked a lot with one of the characters in the Archie cast was Archie's pal Chuck Clayton. Now, Chuck was introduced much later. I mean, the Archie characters came around in 1941, and Chuck was created in 1970. So he came along much later when it was, you know, more normalized, shall we say, to be more diverse and include people of color in the Archie cast. Chuck had to go through some development, though. He needed a few years to really bake, because initially, when he was created, he he was just created to be Archie's black friend, Archie's African American friend, but there wasn't much else to him. So it took a lot of writers over the course of many years to really make him a more interesting character and a more fully developed character. I had the pleasure and honor of working with Alex Simmons, who's a great writer, very, very nice guy. I loved working with him. And he made it like a personal mission to get Chuck more screen time. So he wrote a mini series for Chuck that I was fortunate enough to illustrate, and that was it was called the Cartoon Life of Chuck Clayton, and it was all about what we were trying to do. Something that was introduced along the way was that Chuck was an artist. Chuck was Archie's comic book reading friend. And that was, that was something a little bit more interesting because a lot of times the newer characters that were created for Archie were there just to react to Archie's wackiness. So most of them were just like the straight man in the comedy bit. But the comic book thing made Chuck a little bit more special. So we got to play with that, and we actually made Chuck an art teacher, where he was teaching comics to a school of little kids. So we got to grow the Archie cast a little bit more, introduce some more diverse characters that way, and we gave Chuck a lot of screen time. This, by the way, is Chuck, who I'm drawing. A lot of times, when I'm teaching, I teach basic drawing at the KUBERT School a lot, especially in our online classes. I teach that a lot. And one of the lessons I try to convey is that, all drawing, whether you're drawing realistically, whether you're drawing in a very cartoony way or a very stylized way, like the Archie style, all drawing is the same, at least at the beginning. All drawing is essentially built on the same foundation, the same principles. So when you saw me start drawing Chuck here with that oval and that grid, I use that grid, a form of it anyway. Whether I'm drawing a portrait, whether I'm drawing a more realistic character like Batman or Spider-Man, or whether I'm drawing somebody really cartoony like the Archie characters, I really started out the same way. It's how I finish it, giving Chuck here the distinct shape of his head, giving him, the distinct shape of his nose, his mouth, all the little details that make Chuck Chuck. That's the only difference. But the beginnings are all the same, regardless of what I'm drawing. And that's true whether I'm drawing the head, the body. So there we have a portrait of Chuck.
Just awesome. And I feel like, to your point, just a good parallel. And again, Anthony, feel free to, from your expertise and from Sean as well, the parallel of everything starting the same, but again, the nuance and change, as you're trying to tell the story of that character is brought along as it's being developed, and a lot of times doesn't seem to be the finished product the very first time out, right? It seems like there's a lot of iterations and changes that has to come about. And again, I really appreciate the back end of that story of this of Chuck's I guess being intentional that Chuck as a character, was his own character, right? That as we think of that series, having that story, which I did not know all of, is great, and I feel like just was a good parable for a lot of the ways that we look for these type of characters to come through.
I never really made that connection before, but it's there. I totally see it.
And I think it's true with majority of characters, especially any character that's really introduced. Dedren, you brought that up there. You said something about how when like a character is kind of first introduced, there's something that we all kind of have in mind for the character. But one of the beautiful things about comics is as more people are able to kind of add their own ingredients into the pot and add some different flavors to it, you create this incredibly well-rounded individual. It becomes its truly its own being, even more so than when they're first introduced. So to hear that kind of a story about Chuck and how he was developed further and further as the years went by, I'm not surprised by that, because I think that that's very common for a majority of characters. When I worked in editorial at DC Comics for a few years, and we developed a few new characters. And at first, you just have that general sense of what they're going to be like. But as the pages turn and the issues go by, there's so many more opportunities to expand their world a little bit more. What are they like? Do they have relationships? Just do they have parents? Just all these sort of things, and you can kind of just grow it more and more and more. And I think that that's what's really, really fun about comics, is that as a creator, you can get out there and you can make the world as interesting as you want it to be. So it's up to you as the creators of tomorrow to get out there and grow the industry, make it interesting, make it more inclusive. The one thing I will say about the KUBERT School that I'm extremely proud of is that we have students from all around the world. They come to our school and they bring incredible perspectives with them. And that makes for really interesting storytellers and really interesting artists. And that's what's absolutely incredible and one of my favorite things about the school.
It's really true. One of my favorite things about teaching is learning as much from my students as I do from, as hopefully they learn from me. And we just get students from all over, all sorts of walks of life too.
And Fernando's going through here, and he's really kind of showing you here at this point. And I've noticed some of the wonderful comments coming in the comments section. Just basically how you can utilize that grid, exactly what he was talking about there before. About as long as you're doing it and you're putting down the basics and the understandings there, you can go in and you can make it look a little bit more realistic. You can refine the drawing a little bit more. And there's nothing wrong for those of you that love to draw simple, cartoony style. Do it. That's wonderful. It's actually incredibly difficult. The oversimplification of the human figure or animals or anything in general, and being able to convey that information in an understandable way is much more difficult than people believe it to be. So if you can do it, and you can do it very well, I promise you will succeed. But just know that whether you're drawing cartoony or realistic, you need to have a strong understanding of the basics. And by basics, I mean basic drawing. So that's what Fernando here is demonstrating here for all of you right now.
Yeah, I'm giving you guys a little bit more of a more realistic Chuck here, just so that you could see that it really is all drawing is related. All drawing is very similar. And Anthony mentioned how sometimes people who draw in a cartoony or simplified style, they feel like it's not as legitimate as say something more realistic. And it can be tougher because when you're drawing in a cartoony style, you're working with a whole lot fewer lines. So, if you're working realistically, yeah, you could render the heck out of something until you get it looking the way you want it to look. But most cartoons are very simple. So you just get like one line to say what you want to say.
Like the second, what Anthony was saying, like it is not necessarily make an artist more skillful just because they might draw something a lot more realistic or naturalistic. Because what Fernando's doing right now, I would have like a really difficult time trying to do. Like, I think we would start a lot of these drawings the same, and it's just like building a building. You might start off with a lot of the same framework, but you're just going by a different plan. And I've tried just trying to simplify a lot of my drawings, and I've especially had to do it over the years drawing comics because I had my fine art background pretty much trained me to render the crap out of everything, and you really can't get away. Like you can do it, but you're just gonna it's gonna kill you every time just doing one page if you keep going like that every single time. It's just not possible. You can't keep it up. So being able to draw simply like this and have it to be like understandable, and I mean, if you look at these characters, like they're lifelike, they're rich. Like there's not a deadline on that page. Like it's just really difficult to do that. I still have a difficult time sometimes trying to hold back a little bit of line work, and I can't say every single one of those lines is necessarily important. It's not necessarily adding to the narrative, and it gets published and somebody actually reads it. They're gonna look at it for 3 seconds and move on to the next. And I've seen people do it, so it's just a thing to keep in mind.
You are being very kind because I have made a point of looking at all of your artwork, and it is beautiful.
Oh, so thank you.
You're just being very modest. And I think that you make a great use of the lines that you do put down on the page. But what you did say does make a lot of sense because I can always remember Fernando. Fernando was also my instructor when I was a student at the KUBERT School as well. And I can remember him, and I can remember Joe KUBERT telling me all the same. Any line that you put down on the page has to serve a purpose. You don't want to just put down a line just for the sake of putting it down. A lot of times we see with students, it's actually more of like an insecurity or a security blanket in the sense because, they don't know how to fill the page, or it feels awkward to leave some sort of negative space there on the page. And then they'll go in and they'll just start throwing in a bunch of extra lines, and you don't have to. Become comfortable with negative space or just not having to fill in everything with line work. And it'll save you time. And I promise that your pages will look beautiful.
Yeah. It's saving time is insanely important if you're going to be drawing comics. Like any amount of time you could save is that's another hour of sleep you can get. Another it's a little bit more time with your loved ones you can have. It's just, man.
Always remember, you get paid by the page, not by the line.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a T-shirt that needs to be made.
I was going to say that's that's such a strong line. That's in and of itself is great.
But only artists are going to understand it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So here I'm just showing that, again, these basics can be applied to anything, whether you're drawing a male character or a female character. Everything's the same. Everything is really, honest to God, the same. This is Nancy, another character from Archie. I'm trying to think now if she was actually used on the Riverdale TV show. I'm not sure or not. Now more and more people recognize the Archie characters more from the Riverdale TV show than from the actual comics, which is pretty funny.
This is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Listen, this is
And here too, sometimes the artist has to know when to put that pencil down and walk away, because sometimes the drawing is just done and you're done. But the artist will still want to noodle and keep adding lines. But you got to know when to stop. Um, see in the comments, Fox is asking, did the Riverdale show increase interest in the comics? Yeah, I think so. Um, I know, when I do conventions and things, I get asked about Archie a lot more, and I get asked about the show. And I think it's because of because of Riverdale. Um, and I think I, it's funny because I think people are watching the show and then they go and they read the comics, and I always wondered, like, man, are you disappointed when you get to the comics? Because the comics are nothing like the show. If you read the comics, Archie isn't murdering people and sleeping with his teachers in the comics.
That would disturb me so much if someone said that to me. I'd be like, what? Like, bro, it's a comic book. Like, what are we doing? It's Archie.
I know. Believe me. Yeah, it's a different thing. But hey, it has led people to the comics, and they stick with it. They hang around with it.
And that's what's always important. And that kind of goes back to what DEDREN was talking about before, is getting out there and expanding the universe or the characters themselves. And, by doing so, you're able to engage a whole new audience, a whole new group of potential readers or fans that can then bring that forward and pass it on to their children or their friends or the other family members and get them excited and involved in it, because think about it. Comics, or narrative art in general, is really the oldest form of communication that you could think of. Even the cavemen, when they were around, were out there drawing on the walls with pictures, telling stories with their art. And I think that this is such a true to human form of storytelling. And it's within all of us to do. And so to be able to continue to do it and to share it with people in new and exciting ways is always absolutely incredible.
Just so well said. Absolutely. And here.
I think there's something innate in us too that's drawn to it. Because I know, as a little kid, not knowing nothing, but just reading comics, there was something. Even though I didn't know what was going on, but I was picking up on the fact that comics are really the best fusion of visuals and writing. You draw stories. And I enjoyed both as a kid, and comics was the perfect outlet for both of those things, writing and drawing. So there we have an elusive profile. I know sometimes people have difficulty getting a profile down. And really, a lot of times in class, I get asked, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And to my students' frustration, I always tell them, how do you do it? By doing it. And that's unfortunately the actual answer to a lot of stuff, because I could verbally give you a theory, but you're not going to get good at it until you practice it, until you sit down and try it.
That's a great point, Fernando, because just speaking from my own point of view or my own perspective with my two kids, one day, and I hope Avery doesn't get mad at me for telling this story, but she got really upset because her drawing didn't look the way that the picture looked, or something that I was drawing, and she was really upset by that. And I said, Avery, you have to remember, You're just a little kid, right? You know, I have been doing this way longer than you have been doing, and you're already fantastic. You're going to be far better than I am. But what I mean by that story for everyone that's listening is just to allow yourself the time to make mistakes, because that's how you're going to learn, and that's how you're going to become a better artist. Don't think that it's going to be perfect the moment you sit down to start drawing. You know, have fun with it. You know, you have to experiment, play, see what you like. You know, it's so important that you get out there and you try the different kind of tools that are available to you. Make use of everything. See what can make you be the best artist that you can be. But allow yourself the time to make mistakes and learn.
Yeah. A little while ago, I used to teach a sequential art class in Arlington, Virginia, the Arlington Art Center, and a lot of kids in there were teenagers, and they were usually adapt to, you know, as soon as you started drawing, you find the first mistake you make, and then you start wanting to erase it.
Yeah.
And after a while, I wanted to try to avoid that altogether, and so start doing these things that we used to do in college, and these are just little sketch drills, and that's just them doing a number of different stick figures and different poses in a really short amount of time. And usually I give them like a ridiculous amount of time, like you have 30 seconds, 50 seconds, you know, something like that, to get as many down as you can possibly think of. And every stick figure has to do something different. Whatever you can think of, no idea is a bad idea. And I would do that just to try to get them out of the habit of like being insecure with every single line they put down. I'm like, man, mistakes are gonna happen. Don't worry about it. Like, your brain is really adept to solving problems, and if it notices that you're having a problem with something, it's going to adapt if you just keep going. So they would get like, I remember one student had like a ridiculous amount of stick figures on their paper, and it was just like, how did you do this? And she was just like, I just did what you said and just kept going. And while everybody else had like maybe one or two figures on there and stuff like that, because I noticed they were erasing and they were getting all hard on themselves about this, that, or the other. And I'm like, it's a stick figure, come on. But I can't tell you how many people just really think that it's that like what an artist does is somehow like fluid and without issue or mistakes. It's like I see mistakes in my stuff as I go, but I don't, you know, I would never get anything done if I fixated on them too much.
Right. And that's important too. And you know, you're kind of hitting on something there when you talk about comics, is we all have to work on deadlines. You know, we have to get these pages done. It's what Fernando said before, that we all need to turn into a t-shirt so that we can get rich from it. But, you know, we have to get the pages done in a particular amount of time. And if we don't, we get in trouble for it. So you just have to do the best that you can do with the amount of time that you have. So I think that those lessons that you were teaching those students were really great. I think that's really smart. You know, I had an instructor when I was a student at the school, and he used to give us kind of similar things, where he would give us random shapes and say, all right, you've got exactly very similar. You know, you have about 30 seconds to go in and turn this into a face, you know, or to turn it into a person on a vehicle. Just little exercises just to get you out of your head a little bit, you know, stop thinking so much and just draw, you know, and I think that that's so important as well. Don't overthink it. Just do it.
Exactly. It's and I remember when I was in college, and this is what started making me think that, you know, this art, as much talent as it may be, it's more of a skill. I always consider what I do a skill. I don't consider myself like talented particularly, but there were these two. There was this figure drawing class we were all in, and absolutely loved it, but it was getting overcrowded, and so they had to, other figure drawing classes were getting crowded during the time as well. And so they had to take some of the students out of one class that was a completely non-degree program and put them in our class. And they were not artists at all. They were an older couple. They had like regular jobs. Never did anything like this before. So when they started out, they did what pretty much I guess everybody expected them to do. They just couldn't figure out how to draw a human figure that well at first. But to be honest, like by the time the end of the semester rolled around, I mean they were starting to really get it, like really get it. And it was like, oh, and it was when their work started to shift when they stopped being so hard on themselves about it. When they weren't being so frustrated on every little mistake they made and stuff like that. They really just kind of let it go and worked as best they could, and whatever mistakes they made, they would just, remember it on the next one.
And that's key. You have to be forgiving on yourself. You can't beat yourself up over it, all the time. Otherwise, you're going to get caught up in worrying about things that aren't going to help you grow as an artist. So exactly. Be forgiving. Yeah. But as you start to progress, and this is something that I also tell my students now, you have to be self-aware in the sense that you can identify what your weaknesses are. Mm-hmm. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that when you look at your artwork, when it's complete, take a true look at it and be like, what could I have done better? Don't beat yourself up about it, but just be able to identify what the weaknesses are and then work on that to improve. I'm not saying even on the same page, because exactly what I said before, we all have deadlines and you got to get those pages done. Yeah. But with every page that you do, you should always improve. Never stop improving, never stop learning. And that's what made Joe KUBERT such a wonderful artist, is that he always continued to learn and to become better and better as he got older. And that's why he was drawing all the way up into his 80s. So absolutely incredible. Oh. So Fernando's really working through here. He's showing you, he really just put together a nice, more than a mid shot of the figure. He's really working his way down into a full. So you could see he's come in, he's working on some of the style, he's dropping in some shadow, or it might be some sort of leggings on the character.
Yeah, some leggings.
And you could see, he's working his way through it. It's really incredible. So when people look at, the artwork and they see that it's just those solid black lines, that's what after it's already gone to an inker. Now, for those of you that don't know the process of how a comic comes to be, I'm not even going to talk about the editorial side of things. I'm just going to talk about the creative end of it. So what you usually have is it goes from the writer, and once the writer has written the script, it is sent over to the penciler. Now, the penciler will do exactly what Fernando is doing, use a pencil and draw the pages. From there, it goes over to the inker. When the inker goes in and he uses ink, or he can work digitally, and I just want to make sure that I mentioned that to you all as well, is that you can work with a regular pencil or you can work digitally as well. So whatever tool you want to use, as long as it's making your artwork look the way that you want it to look, go for it. And so after it's inked, it's then sent over to the colorist. Sometimes they might send it to the letterer at that point, but usually it's sent to the colorist. And the colorist will go in and add in all the color, make it really pop and be visually interesting. And then from that point, it's sent to a letterer who goes in and adds in all the word balloons, utilizing the script that the writer had created. So this way you can see all the dialogue. And then I saw that there was just a question. deadlines. What is the relationship like between artists and the scriptwriter? I think it's really up to the individuals themselves, because I truly believe that comics are a wonderful form of collaboration. So whenever anybody says that one role is more important than the other, I kind of laugh, because it's not true. They're all important. Everybody plays a key part. The letterer is incredibly important on the page. But speaking from my own point of view, or my own perspective, I'll let Fernando and Sean chime in, or DEDREN if you want to as well. I like to interact with the writer. I like to know what they were thinking, because this is a collaboration, and I want to make sure that we're doing the best job that we can to deliver the best story to the readers. My job is to entertain you. I want you to have a great time when you pick up that book. So maybe the writer might think of something a little bit differently than I did, or maybe I have a question that I want to ask them about. So why wouldn't I want to interact with the writer? I think it's always great to be able to have another perspective from somebody who can kind of chime in with some more ideas or thoughts. So for me, I like it, but it's different for everyone.
Absolutely. But go ahead, please, Sean. Please go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, whatever writer I'm working with, I try to make the best relationship possible with them. Because to be honest, like, this is the framework that I'm gonna work from. This is pretty much the bones of the narrative that I need to tell. So I'm trying to I try to talk to them a bit, get a feel for like the personality, outlook, things like that, things that will help me kind of put the story in context. I try not to just look at it from my perspective, but also like what they might be trying to convey. I grew up reading comics in the '90s, but I definitely don't take that approach to telling the story. I'm really involved in wanting to try to make the narrative of the book hit the reader as best I can, and it always just feels like sort of a half job whenever I read a book that I know, or at least it feels like the artist is pretty much just kind of taking over the story. Every single page is a splash page, and there's I've definitely read books where every other page was a double page spread, and the work was incredible and beautiful colors everywhere, but I don't remember like 1 ounce of that story at all. Like I've read plenty of books like that when I was growing up, and they don't hold my attention that much, and I really want my work to be able to hold somebody's attention, and that's what we need writers for. I mean, they have ideas. That's not to say artists don't have ideas, but I think we have a stronger chance of like making an impact on a reader if we're working together. So
yeah, I agree.
I was going over in my head. I don't think I've ever had a bad situation with a writer. It's great to be able to have that sort of collaborative relationship with a writer. It's not always possible. I've worked from scripts where the writer's been dead, so can't give them a call there. But it's great if you can have that communication with the writer. It's great. And my philosophy always as a penciler has been, let me give the writer whatever he wants. I know when I teach narrative art at the KUBERT School, I'll give my students professional scripts, not just Archie scripts, but I try to give them a little taste of everything, DC, a Marvel script. And always, every time I give the assignment, the very first question is, what can we change? And I try to have them work, be creative, but be creative within the parameters of the script. You still have to translate that story. And my own personal philosophy as a penciler has always been, give the writer whatever he's asking for. Maybe sometimes you might come across that situation where Because writers, God bless them, they're not always visual people. What they want isn't the best storytelling way. So sometimes you just to help the story, you may want to do something a little different. But that's when it's good to talk to the writer or your editor, who's the boss really of the whole project, and you can work things out. But usually I try to give the writer whatever he's asking for, because I want to keep the writer happy, and hopefully he'll want to keep working with me.
Just to kind of add my last 2 cents in as we come to the top of the hour is that it's always a blessing if you can have that collaboration. And I think part of that collaborative relationship that I've been privileged to have with artists, such as Sean, is that learning experience, is that growth and development, not of my story, but of our story. I think once you come in that relationship, that it is a part of a partnership. And being able to communicate and understand, I've been blessed to work with just fantastic artists such as Sean and Wellington Nomo and just a myriad of talented, independent, and professional writers in the work that we do at SUBSUME. And every one of them, not only from just the story of how they professionally create or the technicality of their art, but also what's driving that art, how they're feeling that day. There's so many other organic parts of the conversation that I've been able to just glean some idea or again, just find a new direction and just trust the artist to really be able to finish the sentence, in that sense of expressing the art in the right way. So absolutely. And as you said, Fernando, sometimes you don't get that, and you do have to, in your best professional sense, press onward. But it is just it's the human element of art that is in that relationship, that if you can get it, you're lucky to have it.
It was a really good question, though.
That's a fantastic question, though. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to put a note here for Fox Downtime with Damien and Shantia Stewart. We just want to thank you for your continuing conversations here in that. I'm going to put a thank you note in the chat for that. If you would make sure as you can to give us the email that you may register with, or leave us a note and follow up. We want to make sure to reward you each with one of the Joe Kubert's World of Cartooning art books. So we want to thank you so very much for that. I will also do this all at the top of the next hour as we conclude this program, as we'll take a shift shortly over to the art of Sean Damien Hill. But we do want to make sure that we keep everyone included, and thank you for your continuing to be a part of our programming here with Black Futures Month. So,
yeah, this is great. We're having a lot of fun, and it's mesmerizing. A lot of times, just watching the artwork come to life is something that's really incredible to see. It's almost like a magic trick. I always tell everybody, being able to sit down and draw a page, you're doing something. You're taking something that is 2D, flat piece of paper, and now all of a sudden you're adding dimension to it. You're adding depth, and that's absolutely incredible to do. You're creating a whole universe by doing that. So it's an incredible thing, and that's why I'll throw this out there, of course. But for those of you that do have interest in learning how to draw, be sure to visit the KUBERT School's website. Check it out at kubertschool.edu. We have a lot of different programs that are available, so that if maybe you want to just kind of dip your toe into the water and see if it's the right thing for you, we have some incredible online studies programs. For kids, we have fantastic Saturday morning classes. Of course, if you're in the New Jersey area, you can take them in person, but we also offer them online. Absolutely wonderful instructors here at the school. We have working professionals teaching in every single course, some of the best names that you can think of working in the industry. So definitely check us out at kubertschool.edu.
And I'll be dropping that link in the chat for everyone to be able to take a look at that.
this character that I'm drawing right now has a little bit of historical importance. This is Valerie from Josie and the Pussycats. And she was the very first regular African-American character in a cartoon. The Josie and the Pussycats characters, just in case anybody wasn't aware, they share the same universe as the Archie characters.
Well, I did not know that.
That's right.
Thought that was two separate things entirely. My whole life.
Nope. We also have Sabrina, the teenage witch.
You kidding me? They were in the same universe?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
We could have team-ups.
Yeah.
In fact, Josie and the Pussycats, or Josie, I should say. She started out in the comics as Josie. Josie and Sabrina were created by the same guy, the great Dan DeCarlo. Dan was the, if anybody's thinking of Archie, if you're imagining any sort of Archie image, it was probably drawn by DeCarlo. He really nailed down the likeness, the look, the house style for the company. Everyone who's drawn Archie in the last 20, 30 years is standing on DeCarlo's shoulders. In fact, Valerie and Archie have dated.
Really? Man, I would have stayed with Valerie. You know?
Everyone has their favorite.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I went into some full body figures here just to show you. Again, it doesn't matter what it is that you're drawing. Everything that you want to draw, you can tackle it by starting out simply, by reducing what's complicated and not worrying about things like clothes and anatomy and muscles. Don't worry about that stuff until the end. If you saw me when I was working on these bodies, I really started out with some very, very light stick figures, literally stick figures. And that's the foundation. That's what I build on. And those stick figures let me tackle any sort of pose, whether they're just standing there or whether they're sitting in a more relaxed way, or if I wanted to draw, say, Valerie here or Nancy or any of the characters, throwing a kick or a punch, I could do that too. I have the power. It's all in the stick figure. Whatever you want the character to be doing.
I was enjoying that so much. I had my head back, relaxing, came right into this. I was like, man, this is great.
It's very beautiful and therapeutic, and obviously the commentary, it is truly a behind the scenes where you get a chance to be in the mind of the artist as well as have that nice visual satisfaction as it's going. So this is a great first part already. With that, Fernando, just in I guess a retrospect of all we just had to talk about over this past hour with you, in looking at these characters and for, like, say, the new student that may be coming in and is looking at how can they get from where they currently are, which may be very modest, or maybe just drawing what they see all the time that maybe is not as representative. What would you show or share to that student to kind of encourage them that they may have an opportunity to, with, say, somewhere like the KUBERT School, be able to bring their stories forward?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's that opportunity is there, I think, more than ever. I mean, again, I mentioned before the technology, you know, anyone with a phone can draw. You know, we have students now that they're doing their homework on their phones because, you know, with certain programs you can just draw with your finger. Uh, so you know it's there more than ever. And like I said before, um, the real key to drawing is to just doing it. It's to just do it. You know, so uh, you know, my message to anybody, whatever it is that they want to draw, sit down and do it. You know, just sit down and keep drawing and keep drawing. You know, I used to teach the Saturday morning classes at the KUBERT School, and you know, we predominantly have little kids in those classes, 10 and up. Um, and every now and then I'd get, you know, parents who would say to me, "Well, you know, I'm glad he's drawing, but all he's drawing are monsters, or all he's drawing are, you know, guys with guns. You know, can can you show him how to draw something else?" And I don't know if they wanted the kid to be drawing a bowl of fruit or flowers or something, but I would tell them, you know, just let him draw. You know, let him draw. I don't want to turn drawing into a project, into math homework for him. If he's drawing monsters, there's something about those monsters he's enjoying, and it's getting him to move the pencil. So, you know, let him draw monsters. He may grow up to be the best monster drawer in the world, but more than likely he'll draw monsters for a little while, and then he'll want to draw other stuff too. If he's going to stick with it, he'll want to draw other stuff. So it doesn't matter what you draw as long as you're drawing.
That's it. No, it's just well said.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. So with that, what we'll do now is take a moment to transition to Sean Damien Hill. And Sean, what I'll do is I'll give us a moment. I'll bring your current screen in, and I'll let you kind of get us started here as you give us a little bit of consideration of the characters that you have here. But again, Sean, if you'll just take a moment to give us just a little bit of a quick rundown again of your style and maybe how you see your art, and then of course from there we want to go ahead and take it into your service.
Yes. I know like a lot of people kind of refer to rendering characters like this as realistic. I try to not do that because it makes me think about all kinds of absurd details that I couldn't possibly draw in any reasonable amount of time. I try to think of it as being naturalistic. I'm trying to depict my characters and the world they may inhabit in the most natural way possible, like a tree looks like a tree, and a person would look like a person, as much as I can. When someone says I'm drawing realistic, to me, that makes me think, well, it's not real. Like, I can't draw realistically because I can't like draw a real person that'll get up and go to work right afterwards. So I try to keep that in mind because I'm really just interpreting a human form or a car or a building or whatever the story might call upon me to draw. So this is kind of how I start out. Like, you see these rough gestures just right in here, and I've been doing this like the entire time we've been talking, but not really caring much about like what it looks like or anything like that. And it's just roughly just my stick figure. You know, I'm trying to figure out how the character is going to be, how they're going to stand, what narrative I'm telling overall with them. So yeah, it's not, at this point, it's not the most impressive looking thing. but it does get my mind thinking about what I'm trying to do.
I'm sorry, Sean, just to jump in, we may have lost your visual there. Cut out for us. Do you see it on? If you'll look to bring that back up, we'll get it right back in for you.
Oh, sorry. I think I hit a button accidentally. 1 second.
No worries, no worries. And now, for those who may not know of Sean's mini cohort, I know that for a lot of your work with our independent community has been with programs such as Route 3. Obviously, you had an opportunity to work with 133 Art, also with Ray Comics, of course, us here at SUBSUME, at Marvel, and again, you know, I want to go ahead and bring your screen back up and let you continue. We see it now, Sean, and thank you.
All right, thanks. Let's see. All right. So yeah, I'm just kind of going along and trying to make it work and figure out what I want to stick to. I think that I'm going to try to, like, these larger figures here is like the best ones, the best gestures I've done so far, and I'm really leaning towards doing it that way. But not like 1000% settled on that yet. So still just kind of figuring out, especially Sean here from Route 3, still trying to figure out what I really want to do with them. With Sean, I tend to cheat a lot because I want to have the flame that's usually around him, like the emanation of his power, kind of be a character in whatever piece that I'm doing with him. So try to think about how I want that to work out. Yeah, I think it's just going to kind of stick here. The larger figures seem to still be the most strongest, so I'll just kind of work from there. Oh, wait. For some reason I can't hear anything.
I think what it is, and I'm going to see if I can switch us to that end. I think because I had us in the back, I want to just give your item the right part. So again, I think we had the commentary before. I want to make sure that I can keep us added in. Bear me one moment. We'll make sure we got that. All right. So are you able to hear me now, Sean?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. I'm going to do the same thing for Fernando there. And I think once we go to full screen from there, you'll be able to hear us on commentary now. And I think from there, yep.
I got like one earphone in, so you heard everything else I was saying, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. No, we got you.
I took one earphone out because it was itching, and I was like, oh. But yeah, so these two are still the strongest gestures right now for me. This one here and this one, so I think I'm going to stick to that. And if you're noticing, I am drawing. I'm definitely drawing digitally. It's not that I necessarily have a preference for digital. It's just a lot easier as far as just this comic book production. Like, it's just a fact that sometimes I get edits and I have to change stuff, and it's just a lot easier to do it digitally than it is traditionally for me. I still very much prefer to draw stuff traditionally, but even in this, I'm kind of approaching it how I would if this was just regular pencil and paper anyway. I do a lot of erasing, even though I don't have to. I soften my eraser brushes and stuff to make it feel more like a kneaded eraser. All kinds of cheats that I'm like forcing my mind to accept it as though I'm doing this on like pencil and paper, but definitely not. So usually when I'm depicting a character, I'm very much concerned about like the overall narrative of the piece. Everything has to tell a story. You can't do anything arbitrarily. In illustration, I think in comic illustration, you get a few opportunities to kind of get away with something because it's just so cool. But those opportunities are really rare, and it's usually one of those like gold mine moments or you struck oil moments. It's just few and far in between. So I try not to rely on that. Just trying to make something look so cool that maybe people will just like look past the fact that it's not really working out beyond just being a nice looking picture. So once I've got like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, my apologies, and you may not see it on your screen, but I just wanted to jump in and thank you, Fonts. Fonts just had a quick question about the characters and said, is this a particular character or off the dome? So is this something that you're coming up with, or does this character or these characters representing any ones that we may know or need to get to know?
If you read a lot of indie comics, definitely. So from Sword and Spear, Deadness Creation. This is Nizami, and on the, if I can move my screen over without. This is Sean Anderson from Route 3, created by Robert Jeffrey. And now this is actually maybe only the second time I've drawn a Sorghum and Spear character, and all those characters look incredible. Like if no one has read that book, they need to. It is like one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. It is definitely just one of those things that like man. If you're not reading, it's like reading like one of those old Metal Horrorland books or heavy metal books. It's just every single thing in there is beautiful. The fantasy world is just really well built and it makes sense, and it's man. But the Route 3 series is like a long-standing indie series. It's been around, and it's pretty much like if you want to get like a really good understanding of how I learned how to draw comics over time, it's a really good place to start because it's like the first 3 issues that are collected now in a trade paperback. Those you can see like how my style would jump from book to book because I was definitely like in that mind space of like I'm gonna tell the story the best way I know how, and any mistakes I make, I'm just gonna get it right the next time. So that series taught me practically how to draw comics. So it's a very good thing. Like if you like my work at all, like that's a very good place to look at and kind of take a look at my growth, I guess. So Sean Anderson is like a really near and dear character to me. It's like, besides us just sharing the same first name.
I have to say is I've always been intrigued by people's roughs, or the preliminary work that they do before going into the final pencils.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really enjoy. I love your roughs in particular. I think they have a very beautiful, fluid look to them.
Thank you.
I just think it's very interesting. I really enjoy. I like the way that you, especially on the Sean side of the page, the figure has a really wonderful stance. You've really kind of worked out this great acting. It's powerful.
Yeah.
It just looks great. Even on the left side, her stance is great. And I love seeing just the way you kind of work in the shoulders. And then I noticed when you started penciling on the right-hand side before you dropped in the tricep on top, and just kind of understanding those visual landmarks and anatomy was just fun to see. So I enjoy seeing these sort of things.
Oh, thank you. It's I absolutely love anatomy. It's like one of my favorite parts of actually drawing anything. It's like I used to scour through anatomy books to try to figure out how to depict certain things, and those are really good in trying to understand different parts of anatomy. But doesn't necessarily teach you how all those different muscles work in real life, and how they work with a moving body. Because you got to keep in mind that when a body moves, some muscles contract, some muscles extend. Without being too technical, let's say her arm here. So we have like a shoulder, and her arm, a forearm. When I'm drawing, I'm trying to keep in mind that if I want a strong warrior stance, I try to keep in mind that the narratives that that a warrior has to have a certain amount of like upper and lower body strength. So if whether it's a man or a woman, I try to depict the shoulders as being just depict them as strongly as I can without overdoing it, particularly for a woman. And just keeping in mind just certain practical stuff, like, you know, this is a deltoid, and usually there's a three heads to a deltoid. This is a front and a side or a medium deltoid. And just try to keep in mind that this is a woman, so I cannot make her deltoid like this. And also just try to keep in mind that a side deltoid is typically not that strong by itself, so there's no need to make it like absurdly big. Then I'm just kind of going down here trying to figure out her bicep, and I try to keep in mind that biceps, strangely enough, start right behind the front deltoid. So sometimes when people are going to a gym and they injure themselves a little bit in the shoulder, sometimes it's not even the shoulder, it's their bicep. It's just somewhere up here where the muscle actually wraps around bone is where it's actually hurt, and they start trying to treat the shoulder when it's really never been the shoulder. So try to keep things like that in mind, especially like if she were moving. I would try to keep that in mind, that, you know, if she's pulling something, some of that tension would go in here and it would continue along that bicep if she were like actually trying to pull something. But let me make this tricep behind her a little bit smaller. Just trying to keep things like that in mind, and that bicep would also be sort of stretched because there's an arm extension going on there. So once I do the gestures, then I start trying to figure out what some of those landmarks and some of those muscles are doing. I don't worry about necessarily every muscle. It's just that this one is going to be holding a sword, so I need that arm a little bit flexed because it's got to indicate that there's some weight there. Because she has a fairly large sword, so got to indicate that it's got some weight to it. It's not something she can just pick up. It's not like with no effort whatsoever. It's not light as a feather. You know, if she swings it, it's gonna hurt.
Do you find that when you're drawing the characters that you kind of act out some of the movements before you do them? Do you ever, I mean, I can speak for myself. I know that sometimes when I'm drawing a character that's angry or there's a face that needs to be made, I'll find that I've started making the face myself as I'm drawing it. Do you like ever feel like that way? Like, so when you're talking about the body having to pick up something heavy or anything like that, do you ever try to act it out or just try to like feel how something would be, so this way you have a better understanding of how to draw it?
Yeah. I try to do it when my wife's not around and she's not looking at me funny. But yeah, I gotta get up and figure it out. because it's just too hard to figure out those nuances in my head all the time. It's just impossible. So I'll wait really late at night and get my phone out and try to act out some facial expressions and and maybe a few poses here and there, look in the mirror and stuff, and try to figure it out that way. And hope to God she doesn't wake up. He's like, "What are you doing?" Like, and I'm holding like some kind of stick or something. I'm like,
"I'm drawing."
Yeah, like I'm working. What do you want? This is hard work. Okay, so now I'm just trying to simply work out some of her quad muscles. And there's only 3 muscles in the quad I really pay attention to because they're the ones that tend to do a lot of they don't do a lot of the work when someone is doing something really active. But there's it looks really impressive when you add a little oomph to those areas. Like for this area here, the medialis muscle, and then the femoris, rectus femoris, vastus intermedius here. Those muscles I try to keep in mind. I typically don't draw them out fully, but when I'm keeping those muscle forms in mind, I really simplify it and just do something like this. So it's just it's a lot of I'm a detail guy. I try not to be all the time because it's murder if you do. Like, you just can't get through anything if you're just putting a bunch of lines on every single thing. But what I try to do is I try to simplify and then get into the nitty gritty of it. It's crazy hard to go the opposite way around. A friend of mine is an art teacher, and he just had a lesson not too long ago about having his students just draw a crumpled up paper bag. And he said he could not tell me how many students literally tried to do all the different rendering on that bag before they got an overall shape of it and stuff. And I was like, that would be impossible. Like, you trying to draw all the different wrinkles and stuff inside of a paper bag would be like tremendously boring. I would hate myself trying to do that. But so I try to just keep it simple as I possibly can when I'm working, and then I just start roughing out clothes and costumes and things like that. Just trying to figure out how it's gonna go. And I'm doing this stuff as quickly as I can. It's just like I don't.
Question for you. How important does reference play a part for you? I think that a lot of times people have this weird sort of feeling that if they utilize reference, that they're kind of cheating in a way. But how do you feel about reference in doing work, especially when you're dealing with swords or armor? If you could just give us some information on that.
Yeah. So I think reference is important, and it's definitely not cheating. And if it is cheating, I mean, so is using a ruler to draw a line. I mean, it's one thing if you're using reference to tell you how to draw something, rather than using reference as a way to kind of give you a guide or to inspire you to go a particular direction. It's important not to be a slave to the reference. It's like you can look at different anatomy books and stuff like that as reference on how to do your muscles and your figures and stuff like that. But if you stay a slave to that anatomy book, then every single drawing on that page is going to be a copy of your anatomy book, and that won't work as far as storytelling goes.
Right.
So use it as a guide, use it as a help, use it as your ruler, not anything else.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing, especially, you know, when you're trying to draw, in particular, period pieces, or even if you're drawing at things from today. You know, if you're going to draw a particular car, it should look like that kind of a car. If
Right.
you're drawing the buildings, they should look like the way buildings look. So don't be
Yeah.
afraid to put in some time. You know, when I work on a project, before I do my sit down and really get into things, I make sure that I put together a folder of reference. And a lot of times, even the writers, just to kind of go back to that question from earlier in the program, the writer will sometimes send over their reference to be very specific to a part of the story. If it takes
Yeah.
place in a certain city, they might say, "Hey, this is the building that I'm thinking of. Here's a link to the reference." And you want to have that on hand. It'll be a huge help. I'm having to draw chemical plants right now, and I need to know what a chemical plant actually looks like inside. So, you know, you got to pull up that reference. So don't be afraid to use it.
Yeah, and I always feel some kind of way whenever I like hear a person say that. It's like, "Oh, you're using reference, that's cheating." Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to draw a Gothic building. Like, what am I? I'm
Yes.
supposed to remember it? Like,
And you know, it's wonderful too, because you learn so much. I got to tell you, just from using reference and kind of doing a deep dive on different things, you can learn so many other things. That's why I'm a wonderful, you know, anybody ever wants to sit down and play Jeopardy, we'll have a great game.
yeah, yeah. But it's reference is an incredible learning tool. It works terribly as something to copy from, but as a learning tool to understand how something works, it's incredible.
I like
And
watching how
Dedrin,
you're coming in and you kind of work with this. It's just fun for me to watch and kind of, I guess, give commentary as you're moving through this. But just to watch how you kind of come in very softly and then you just continue to refine. And I like seeing this approach. You know, as someone that works with a pencil or even watching Fernando draw before, there's similarities in how you both approach the work. You know, when Fernando was doing the ovals before, there was multiple lines, right? You know, everyone saw that before. And
yeah,
with the way that you're coming in, you know, you're putting in the lines, you're coming in a little bit soft. And then once you find that line that you enjoy or you see that it works, you come back in and refine it even more. And so it's never stopping. So also, just to kind of touch back on that idea of perfection and making it perfect, you can see that it doesn't start out perfect. You have to continuously refine the work until it gets to the point that you find it to be satisfactory. So, like I said, whether you're working digitally or traditional, both of them are just tools. It's up to you as the artist to do the work and make it be the best piece of art possible.
exactly. It's you know, I think like the more of the artist's hand you see in the work, it's it kind of proves to me how much like they would use things like reference because it's like they're definitely just using it as a guide. It's not like sitting there trying to redraw an entire building from like brick by brick or anything like that. That would be much harder to do anyway. Like it's like most comic artists that I've known and had the pleasure of like asking their advice on doing backgrounds and stuff. Like they would look at a picture of a building and just kind of figure out a way to interpret it, not necessarily copy it.
Right.
And that's mostly what we're doing anyway as artists. We're interpreting a lot of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it's kind of like an outside view of artists cheating with reference because it's like when you're when you look at somebody, look at a building, and then they draw like a very reinterpreted version of that building, you don't necessarily know what's going on in their head to give them the idea of what to draw and what not to draw. You just see some simpler rendition of that building. So I guess, I don't know, I guess from an outside view, it could be like, oh man, they're cheating, they're pulling one over our eyes.
Yeah, I just find that a lot of like young artists in particular, there's always that sort of hesitation of, is it okay to do? And yes, it is. You know, definitely exactly what you were saying before. Utilize it just to help, you know, understand, maybe see different, you know, facades on the building, or what you could do to incorporate that into the building that you're drawing. I can't tell you how many times I've referenced the Ghostbusters firehouse.
Oh man.
You know, and incorporated it into something from that building and put it into you know, a page in the background, or I needed to figure out how to do windows, and I remember windows from a particular building in the city, and I think of those. So it's also mixing and matching and pulling from life in general. You know, I think that that's another really important thing that you need to realize as artists is the more you experience, the richer your art will be as well, because you can pull more from your life that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think so much of art is just kind of learning to understand what you see and how to redo it in your own way. That, I don't know, it's just like, if you don't see, like, if you don't actually take the time to start looking at things, I don't know how you're going to be able to depict it very well. Like, I'm not sure. I guess everything would be a fantasy book then.
I get asked a lot, like, how do you draw good backgrounds? And my answer is always reference. Reference makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Because I mean, any sort of background that you want to draw, you know, unless you're an architect already, it's going to be hard to imagine all those little details that's going to bring your background to life. There's a big difference between an empty cube and a realistic room. You know, you know, room has like trim and molding and doors and windows and electric outlets and light switches and light fixtures and all those things. You're not going to really think about it unless you're really looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
DEDREN, when you write scripts for your artists, do you like to include any reference, or you put together folders?
That's a great question, and I think it kind of goes back earlier to the relationship and the maturation of how artists and writers connect. The short answer is yes. I love references. I love the research and history, and thinking of something like a sorghum and spear, which I base off of a lot of African of continental history of African history, as well as a lot of fantasy references from my D&D days. I love getting lost in that research, but all that to say, I'm also open to the artist's interpretation of things. So where before I felt like I just was a full data dump of 20 to 50 files for every one thing, realizing that, you know, no one wants to just say, hey, draw this exact same thing I found. I think that was the learning process of just giving a couple of points, maybe a couple of notes, that it wasn't too vague, and trusting the artist. And in a lot of sense, that communication and back and forth is what's helped me as a writer expand the story, right? And so that commentary and I see this, but have you ever looked at that? And is something that really I've always appreciated about that collaborative process.
Something else that I'm really intrigued by, and I thought we should bring this up just because the viewers is, if you work for an established company, majority of the time they're going to pair you up with a writer or the writer with an artist. But for those of us that are interested in doing a lot of creator-owned comics, and Damien, you've been very successful at doing so, how do you find your artists? Do the artists find you? Do you go through a selection process? For those that want to get into creator-owned comics, when they might be a writer and they're wondering, how do you find an artist to work with? Would you mind touching on that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I think we talked pre-COVID. I think conventions was always my favorite, like your local indie artist alley. So like if we go to a larger convention, a lot of times we think of the name brand spaces and places. So say like the Marvel and the DCs, but at each of these conventions, they are up and coming writers, artists, vendors that a lot of times are just adjacent, and a lot of times are just undiscovered. And so trying to find the one that's also starting out, you find that from a budget standpoint, a lot of times they're a lot more accessible. And also from a time standpoint, are people that you can work with and grow. Digitally, places like ArtStation, of course now Instagram and Webtoons, there's so many other places that you can virtually reach out to. But I've always liked the fact of finding artists that had something I could support up front, that either may have their own independent comic that they've drawn, or look at something in that space that I like and just follow that artist. There's been relationships that have definitely been with people that I've never met in real life, that I've had multi-year relationships and created several books with. And then likewise, I have artists that I met at my local comic book shop, that while they were buying a comic and I was buying a comic, that we both figured out we like the same things, and hey, I write, and hey, I draw, and we can do, and maybe we can meet in the middle. And so I think a lot of it is just looking in the places that you want to be. I think you'll find that there's someone on a similar path, and that this community is small, particularly in independent comics. Particularly, or especially if you're talking about independent comics or Black comics or comics of color, or being made by underrepresented voices and communities, then it becomes extremely small as far as the degree of separation. So the talent's out there. I think it's just looking basically where you want your product to be, which a lot of times is at your local comic shop, and again at your local convention. But also online and communities. There's all kinds of boards and programs that you can get. And I just normally ask for a couple of references. I don't have the full-on tryouts. Sometimes for some people, I may ask for test pages. If it's something where it's like a language communication. So the good thing about working online is that you do have a global diaspora of artists you can work from. But even a fantastic artist that is your dream artist, if some things don't translate, right? So I've had that with just the perfect artist, everything's set, but just from the story that I'm telling and the way that they interpret it, there may be something that's simply lost in translation. But a lot of times, or more times than not, a good story and a good art find a way. Particularly if you can make a relationship out of it. So that's a very long-winded answer to say. Start my local comic book shop and take the journey from there.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, so many folks have a story that they want to tell, and they have interest in getting out there, and they're just, I think sometimes they feel that they're stuck because they don't know how to start, especially for a writer, someone that wants to write. And it's exactly what you're saying. You can go out there, you can go to the shows, you can go to your local comic shop, you can get online. I think that since things are online now, it's a wonderful way of, you never had more opportunities to find people of similar mindset. Another thing that will come up that we find is, how do you get the book published? And I know, Fernando, you've had some wonderful experiences self-publishing books, and DEDREN and Sean. And maybe if you wouldn't mind talking about self-publishing and maybe some of the different avenues that people can look into and how they can get their book put out on the shelves of their local comic shop once they've found their artist, once they've found their colorist, etc., and actually have the book ready to go.
Now, I know for, and again, I want to get everyone's opinion therein. For being able to publish your own book, the first thing I thought was that it was impossible, right? That you just simply can't do that. Right? You had to go through a large publisher. You had to order 10,000 of your book, and you had to just hope and pray that you could mortgage, take a second mortgage out, and just sit on these books for eternity until you got options for a movie or something like that, or locals, or you just became an overnight sensation. I think the good thing is that the rise of crowdfunding, places like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, really were kind of kicking off right when I was starting. So the idea that there was businesses around helping people get not only large orders of books out, but just small orders of books out. And just with social media being able to show and connect, it became a lot easier. And just the simple fact that you can go to your local print shop and more times than not be able to walk out or at least place an order for the things that would simply count as a book. And now that there is such a robust marketplace both here in the US and internationally that cater to that cater to that maker space, that you can get a book, you can get these books in very high quality and professional look for not a lot of money. And also now that there's an audience that is now used to funding independent projects as well. So I feel like the space has definitely matured, where before you just simply had to, again, buy a lot of books and sit at a convention and hope someone came by. You've got so many more options and opportunities now. As Mr. Ruiz said, you can be on your phone drawing. That same phone can place an order for 100 test books from off printing place in China, and again, free shipping issue. You should get those things in a few weeks, and you'd have everything you needed to get started. But again, the community absolutely exists, and that opportunity was really demystified just by doing. So once I started and figured it out, the first books I printed, A Sorghum and Spear, they definitely couldn't fit in a typical Mylar bag. I'll say it like that. They were big, they were clunky. I had to staple them myself, but at the same time, I sold those books because people saw what we were trying to do, and liked the art, liked the story, and it wasn't a finished product, but it was enough, and that was what was empowering to keep investing in the craft, to try to keep working that art, keep working that story, and the things that I couldn't do, go out and find someone else that could do it. And I mean, and that's how teams are born, and being able to go to my local comic shop is how I discovered Sean Hill here, right? So I saw a fantastic cover of this book called Route 3, independent comic that was sitting at Challenges Game and Comics, and I was like, what is this? I'd never seen this. I'd never seen a character that looked like Sean. This is a good story, and found out like the artist was Sean, and the writer was my neighbor, and we have been fast friends and connected ever since. But I think these are the things of being able to say, how do I make a book? And again, being in the spaces that you want to be. I feel like those conversations and the way to find those solutions are within the community you want to be a part of.
I think that's great, especially for those that might be wondering, well, how do you raise the money for these things, or how do you get that book put out there? Fernando, you've been extremely successful with running Kickstarter campaigns. I was wondering if maybe you wouldn't mind talking for a moment or two about just Kickstarters or crowdfunding in general, and how that's an option for self-published creators to get out there and raise the funds for their books.
Yeah, crowdfunding has really been a game changer as far as people being able to join this industry, because prior to crowdfunding, you either get a lot of money yourself, or you pitch to established publishers, sometimes big publishers who may want to change your vision. But crowdfunding, the thing that I really love about crowdfunding is that it peels away all of the in between people. It's the creator and the fan of the creator who wants to support the project. And they are paying the creator directly for that creator to be able to bring that work to them. There's no distributor, there's no publisher other than the creator himself. The creator is most likely his own editor. So it's really brought the reader and the creator closer together. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about crowdfunding. A lot of people think it's a whole lot easier than it is, and you have to work it. You have to work it. You have to. I always tell everybody the first thing you got to do is do your homework, sit down and do some thinking, really nail down what you want your project to be in terms of size, in terms of just what you want that final product to be. You want to do a 30-page comic book? You want to do a 100-page graphic novel? Whatever you think you can do, just really nail it down. Because when people go to search your project to fund it, they're going to want a real, honest to God, concrete idea of what that project is going to be. So the more real your project comes across, the more people will be willing to support it. If you just put out like a half-baked, not well thought out idea, and you're like, well, I kind of think I want to do a 20-page book, but I'll see how it goes. People are, they're going to smell the wishy-washiness. They're not going to want to back that. They want a concrete, solid project. That's why I also tell people, have a decent chunk of the final work ready to go when you launch a campaign, so that people really can see you're serious. They can see you're invested. They can really see what this work is going to be. There's a lot of work that needs to be done before you launch, but it's a great avenue for people to really bring their ideas to life. The other thing too is now with the advent of platforms like webtoons, Comixology. Now we also don't need to distribute these comic books into store. You could just put them out on a web platform and hope that people discover you that way.
And that's a great avenue to look into as well. And I hope that everyone that's listening is aware of these opportunities. You could put your comic out right now onto a Comixology. I believe it's called Comixology Submit, and I apologize if I don't have that correct right off the bat. But visit their website and you can look into it. What they do is, if you put it up, it's actually a 50-50 split, which I find to be very, very fair for that sort of a setup. And you still retain the complete rights to it, and you can bring it, you can print it, you can do whatever you want with it. But it's a way to get your book up online and to make a little bit of money from it. It's also, you can bring it to Webtoons, and I believe it's free to put up. And you can push your new series or your new book. You can begin to build up your fan base. But talking about fan bases, and I know the time is tight, but this goes for everyone that's here tonight. How have you felt the importance of social media is in regard to creating a base of people that are aware of your work? Do you feel that it's extremely important? Does it affect the way that you work? How do you feel about social media in general and its place in regard to your work?
I think it works as long as it doesn't become a distraction. I mean, it's not very helpful if you start to become the kind of person that puts out something and then you like are going back every 5 minutes to see if anybody liked it or something. I mean, that doesn't help at all. But if if you're just trying to build sort of a community around what you're trying to do with your work and stuff like that, then it's great. You know, like actual relationships and stuff. Like I try to be as gracious as possible when I'm on social media. Like if somebody bothers to comment on my stuff at all, it's, I try to say thank you. I appreciate that because they could just move on to something else. They could just look at any other thing that might actually entertain them or whatnot. They're stopping to pay a compliment or something to me. So try to treat it like it's real life, if somebody walking by like my table at a convention and they stopped and actually bought something or at least said, "Oh, this is nice. I like this." Go ahead and say thank you, have a little bit of a conversation, develop a relationship, because that's why people really support you, because they think what you are doing is really good, but also you as like an artist or a writer or a creative person is just like you're something that they want to see more of in that particular industry. So for me, I have to try to like portray that and kind of just hopefully earn people's like or admiration for the work if I can.
I think it's the social media thing has become essential for an artist. Yeah, you don't want to fall down a rabbit hole and let it be a distraction, but especially if you're going to go the Kickstarter route, the crowdfunding route. I another bit of early advice that I give my students is you have to have that online presence, because ultimately what you're going to do is you're going to ask people for money, and you can't jump out of nowhere and say, "Surprise! I've got this. Send me money." If you build up interest in your campaign before the campaign launches, people are more inclined to want to give you their money. So, get people excited, post artwork as you develop it, sketches, designs, anything that'll spark curiosity and interest. It's only going to pay off when your campaign launches. Plus, it's just a great way of getting your work out there. We're all not drawing the X-Men every month, so social media gives us a way of being visual and out there, and just letting people know that we exist and what we do.
Yeah,
that's well said, and I just like that. Just that we exist, right? And I think there's part of it your existence that I think in the pandemic for sure is digital, right? That we have the way that now that we work for a majority of us, the way that we communicate, and definitely as looking future forward, that there's definitely going to be a digital sense of self, whether that's social media, your work existing in other platforms, whether that's again as simple as a comic. What's a comic today could be an NFT in a couple of months, right? I think the idea that social and digital presence is almost mandatory if you're an artist. I think to a certain point, but at the same time, and I think it's been said, it's to complement the work, right? I don't think it's a shortcut to not doing the basics, that to not having the skill set, to not having the sense of community that is going to be necessary, not only just for your work when you're asking for things, but I think as you're trying to develop your craft and your reputation in the spaces you want to represent. particularly if, of course, what we're talking about for inclusive characters, I think that's exponentially so, because I think that's important because, and a lot of times we may not see that. So that becomes, social media absolutely becomes even more essential, because the only way to, a lot of times, create what you want to see is to create what you want to see. What you want to see is to create what you want to see. So, if we're going to see a Sean Anderson, or if you're going to see a Namazi, or if we're going to, see new things and see new developments, a lot of times it's upon the artists and the creatives to make that happen. So being able to not only make that for yourself, but to share that in your community, I don't think there's a better vehicle than social media right now. But I think, again, it's understanding that that's a tool in your toolkit, the same way that it's something in your, I would think, in your art portfolio. It's one thing of many that you need to master to be able to tell your story.
I think that's great.
All right. And I think there's absolutely, and we appreciate that. Fox will give one more moment as Sean brings in, and what I'll do is I'll go ahead and bring us all online as Sean finishes out. Sean, and let us kind of answer that. The question, of course, is where can we find the personal work here to support these artists, as well as, I think, follow with us in some. So great points there. Go ahead and bring that on. And let's go ahead and bring us in so that we can be in that sense. I think that it's just going out of full screen because we are all here. So Sean, just as a final note for you, and not only your characters here, but kind of also a lead out question as we get ready to close this fantastic workshop. For you and the idea of drawing inclusive characters, particularly inclusive superheroes, is there any thoughts that come to mind as far as what you think or what you more so want to work towards as an artist in this space?
Yeah, so I think when you're a little kid and you're growing up and you're reading comics, or at least it wasn't for me, a lot of the things that you use to entertain yourself also teach you a little bit about the world you live in and how to interact with it. And bringing inclusion into those different medias is, to me, a very good way on trying to basically just engage the world as it really is, and not as just an ideal of what it is. Because me being a person from DC, I grew up in a largely Black community. So if I made a lot of books where most of everyone in there were Black, and let's say I show that particular medium, that comic, to somebody who's never read a comic before, never set foot in the United States, they come from somewhere else where they don't read comics, they will probably think that that's the way I see the world. But if I started bringing in different cultures, different ethnicities, and that kind of thing, then, and let's say they might have a slightly more inclusive idea of what the world is than I do, then they will probably think that I'm able to look at the world a lot more realistically, rather than just some idea of what I see. So I think if we include a lot of different cultures and ethnicities in the media we create, we can teach ourselves, the future generations, pretty much anyone and everyone who enjoys this stuff, how to kind of interact and engage with the world realistically.
Fantastic. So with that, what we'll look to do, and as I'm dropping the links to answer the question. So we have the direct link there for Fernando Ruiz, as well as Sean Damien Hill, where you can directly follow and support these fantastic artists and look to some of their work, as well as keep in touch with them. I'm just going to go ahead and also, of course, bring in the note for the KUBERT School again to bring that along as well.
Oh, thanks.
So, of course. So this has just been, I'm eager for more of this, and I feel like even in a brisk 2 hours to be able to see both of these masters at work, that not only have we seen some fantastic art, but definitely gotten a great greater understanding of the story behind the characters, and even in just their development, not only just from the script, but I think also in the way that we're seeing the visual representation. So it leaves me very optimistic that, as Fernando said earlier, that if there was a time that this was going to happen, that we are in that time. And I think that artists and creators in some are really in a special time and space where you can go to a KUBERT school and you can find your voice, and you can find the refinement of your talents and of your stories to find an audience that is ready for you. And that just makes it all the more worthwhile to not only share art, but know that your art's appreciated, and that is a part of yourself that goes out and is seen in others. So it just means it just is very heartwarming to think that fine art like this is really getting its due. So again, to both our illustrators today, and obviously to yourself, there, Anthony. I want to just turn it over to you to kind of chat about where stories like this continue to thrive at the KUBERT School, and just kind of give us a close and of what others that may want to continue this type of education, this type of connectivity, to be able to find their voice in creating. By all means, I want to turn that over, because it's obviously a great segue and into how to stay included. So please.
You said it so well, though. No, look, for everyone out there, from the moment we're able to start drawing, we all have stories to tell. We all are natural born storytellers. That's what human beings are. It's how we relate to one another. It's how we communicate. It's by story. We all have a story to tell. So those of you that are interested in going forward and making this into your career, whether you come to the KUBERT School or whether you go somewhere else, no matter what you do, know that what you do matters, and that what you have to tell is important. You can go out there and you can turn this into a profession. You can make this your life, and you can succeed at it if you believe in it and you work for it. Don't ever stop, and don't ever let anybody tell you no. When they tell you no, just open up the next door right next to it, and then go back and kick that one down, because you can do it. I promise you that you can do it, because if I can, and Fernando can, and Sean can, and DEDREN can, then anybody can. You all can do this. Don't ever, ever give up. I promise you it's worth it. That's all I can say.
Again, it's also better said, and again with enthusiasm. So I want to give the platform one more time to Fernando and Sean. If there's any closing remarks, do you want to show and share about not only your work, but just in general? And again, as we thank you and get ready to conclude this presentation.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Not to mark out here for a second, but I just think it's a good. Thank you for the honor of just bringing me on. Like having my name associated with SUBSUME and KUBERT School in any way is a absolute honor for me, and I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, I just have to say that as well, DEDREN. It was a really nice event that you put together, and I appreciate all of the work that your team put in. And Fernando, as always, is absolutely fantastic. And Sean, it was wonderful to be able to speak with you tonight. So I hope that we can all stay in touch. And DEDREN, I'll be texting you and bugging you anyway, so it'll be all right.
Oh no, absolutely. And Fernando, thank you so very much. We are honored by your presence and the brilliant experience that you shared with us here tonight. Likewise for yourself, Sean. We appreciate you and your time and talents of joining us with that. And to all of our to our guests that have been following us for the past couple of hours, had some great comments, some great commentary. I do want to note that Steve Farrow and Aaron Washington, as a note, that you both have won a KUBERT Art School Art Kit. And if you'll email us with your ticket email, I'm dropping that right now in the chat. If you email us at subsumelife@gmail.com, we'll get that right out to you. All right. And with that, everyone, go ahead and Sean. I'm going to take Sean out so we can get one hero shot of everyone here. Again, it was
And
just
my little dot.
See, you remain mysterious throughout. So I think
Yes.
we're talking about the age of social media. I don't think people still know what you look like. So that might be as a evaluation to you and your brand, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
But no, that's fantastic. And again, just to say, well, I was just how impressed I was with the KUBERT School. I mean, obviously, just I've seen this, on the back of like every comic book since I was a kid. So like the name, the brand, right? And so it's an aspirational brand for creators, particularly obvious in our comic space. So to see your table, and again, I think it harkens back to earlier, like how do you find that artist, that writer, that person that you're in. It was just going to Detroit Motor City Comic Con. We're right there and accessible to everybody. Was an opportunity, and being able to meet yourself, be able to meet Lloyd, and actually and be able to table next to a current instructor in TJ Sterling. It was easy to see like these are the people that are the people I want to be around. I want to be like, and to know that you kind of have that opportunity. And again, the way that everyone was just so open to and optimistic, like you can do this, and it wasn't a pressure of you can only do this here. It was that you can do this because you're here, right? You're already taking that step, and you just need to keep going wherever you go. And so it was just thinking of how to empower our community with SUBSUME. Where are the places and spaces that you can grow and develop? And this is just such a natural fit. And I know this was the very last moment. And again, the graciousness of the KUBERT School and the both of y'all to come in on a Friday night and come and share your time and talents is definitely not lost on us. And again, I'd love to think of how we can continue this relationship to show and share, the best ways to tell stories and for folks to stay included. And again, I just truly thank you both.
Oh, no problem. I really appreciate it. We would love to do more with you. And hey, look, I think I'm going to speak for Fernando as well, but as soon as I'm done here, my Friday nights, I'm swinging right back onto the board, and I got to get pages done. So it never stops. Life of an artist, you're always drawn. It never ends.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just want to just thank you and to that to everyone who's given us just a great kickoff. And we'll kind of conclude to this part. I want to give you gentlemen back the rest of your evening, get back to those boards and again, just keep creating. We're so honored by your time here today. So with that, we just want to say thank you again to Anthony Marquez, to Fernando Ruiz, and to Sean Damien Hill, who have definitely given us a masterclass in how to draw inclusive characters and to stay included in the comic scene. So, gentlemen, I'm going to take you off and say thank you so very much. And I'll then just kind of close out this first part. So that was a great and really fulfilling a couple hours that we had a chance to work and partner here with the Joe KUBERT School to showcase some fine, not only comics, but also just a fantastic way to look at how we're able to find inclusion in all things. So of course, with us at SUBSUME, we're looking at how to stay included in creativity, technology, and community. And it's more than just comics, just like it's more than animation and it's more than virtual reality and NFTs. It's about finding yourself and finding your culture and the stories and the legacies that you want to be a part of and that you bring as an individual and as a community to the forefront. And really what Black Futures Month is truly to be about is how we see Black stories, Black creators, Black businesses as thriving in a future that includes us, not because we have to be, but because we are who we are and because we deserve to be heard. And so building this as a weekend seminar and service that we can have interactive places like this and just a litany of talent that kicked off tonight and to go forward into Saturday and Sunday. We want to make sure that we are honoring the legacy of Black History Month by ensuring there is a brilliant and inclusive future for everyone. And so I'm not going to ramble too much further on that. For those who showed up with us tonight, again, we want to thank them so very much. And just say, there's so much more to come. So for those who may be just joining us and maybe haven't had a chance to get their tickets, there's still time. There is a free link at subsumesummit.com. That is SUBSUME, subsumesummit.com. If you go there, you see not only a brilliant roster of talented folks, but you'll also see where you can go and click on our Eventbrite to get a complimentary ticket. That will be doing giveaways such as the KUBERT Art Kit that we've given away to several of our guests tonight. So with that, we're not going to hold you much longer tonight, but know that we're actually going to start earlier in our broadcast, about 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So overnight, our team will be working hard to get some new updates. Of course, based on us being a virtual conference, we're sensitive to people's time and opportunities based on us being in the pandemic. But we've got a completely full roster of 2 days of talent that is going to carry us on into this year and into the brilliance of another fulfilling Black Futures Month 2022. So with that, everyone, thank you so very much. And just thank y'all for believing in us and our words of SUBSUME. So SUBSUME means to stay included, to be who you are, just as you are, and to find the things that belong to you to be naturally drawn in. And so with that, we want you to stay included in the best and brightest of our futures, which is Black Futures Month 2022. My name is DEDREN SNEAD. I am the founder of SUBSUME, and I thank you so very much for your time. We'll talk soon.